I want to start off this this talk with a quote. It's a quote from Bjork. She's like this prolific artist in the music and like film industry. She says, "I've always appreciated working with people I have chemistry with, who are friends, and where you feel that the work is growing while you're getting to know each other better." And so I have like a musician art background, so I really connect and get inspiration from people that are like artists. And so this talk is going to be about what I learned building a Misfit Hackerspace, specifically PlebLab. This is a picture of, I think it's the only picture that we have, honestly. I think we always decided like, well, we're going to do a picture, and then we just never did it, and then finally it just like happened one day, randomly. But that's Keon on the left of Stacker News, that's Kyle of Austin Bitcoin Club, and that's me, Car. And these are the three people that started the first hackerspace, I guess, in Austin. So who am I? I'm Car, co-founder of PlebLab, starting in late 2021, co-founder of Austin Bitcoin Club, starting in early 2021, co-founder of Austin Bitcoin Design Club with Sahil and Paul, starting in 2022, founder of Thriller Bitcoin, started in late 2020, co-host of Stacker News Live, which is a show that Keon forces me to do every week, but I do it. That started in 2021. Previously was at TFTC, where I was an inaugural producer. Also have experience with like Microsoft, Cisco, was an engineer at MIT Pros. They sold in 2021, so it was cool seeing how like an MSP grows like that. And then just being involved, like I said, with art and music in Austin since 2009. Like trying to define a hackerspace is extremely hard because it's a loaded word. You really don't know what it's going to be. Like, I think initially when we were thinking about it, it was like a conversation that me and Keon were having at like Capital Factory in Austin, and we were just like talking, and we started talking about a movie or something, and then, or no, we were talking about On Catch Fire, and then it was like, yeah, we should do something like Mutiny, like the Mutiny House, and then yeah, we just started talking about it, and then before you know it, it just became like a continuing conversation. And I think that's at least my memory to how the idea came about. I definitely think it was your idea, if I remember correctly, but maybe that's another story for Keon to tell.
I don't think it matters. But...
Yeah, I don't think it matters either, but I think the fact that that we even thought about it.
It's that we had a great vibe. Like everyone in the Capital Factory, and I was getting kicked out of Capital Factory. Like
oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
I'm like, let's get a house together.
Yeah.
Just work together.
Yeah. So that's what it was, out of necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make sure that we stayed together.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the inspiration. So a little bit about hackerspaces. I think this is just kind of what I've written a post about this on Thriller Bitcoin. If you want to go check it out, just type in hackerspaces. But I think a successful hackerspace helps humans create things that couldn't happen before. That's what I think it is. I think the success of these spaces can be attributed to the supportive and collaborative communities that they foster. I think hackerspaces, just in general, over the course of recent years, just based off of my research, there's over 1,000 worldwide, and specifically in the United States, there's 250 active hackerspaces, and then more pop up yearly. I think also just people here around TabConf and conversations that I have, it seems like this hackerspace movement's going to happen for Bitcoin, and I think it's inevitable at this point. I also firmly believe this now, and I didn't believe this in 2020 and 2021, but I believe this now that in order for Bitcoin adoption to get to hyper-Bitcoinization that we all want, I think you need a major hub in every city, every major city around the world. I don't think we get to hyper-Bitcoinization without it. I think if you look back into history, I think there's been multiple technologies that have changed civilization. I think you look like the railroad system, electricity, printing press, you can go back. And I think whenever there's a new technology that changed and shaped the world, it required some kind of physical presence of a sort. I think it's also clear to define the goals and objectives of hackerspaces. Kind of the things that maybe I don't talk about this enough at PlebLab, but maybe it's in my head and I can be better about getting these objectives out there, but it's to create an open community of developers, hackers, creatives, open source hardware enthusiasts to create, share, learn, code, and collaborate. And then it's also to help spread knowledge to your local community around you. So like all the people that have come in during workshops every week that we have and explaining this technology as well to them. And it's also, another cool thing is just like, the coolness about a hackerspace is you get the creatives that necessarily wouldn't be in there if it was just like a WeWork, right? Or like a Capital Factory. Like a hackerspace allows you to get creatives from all sorts of different areas. Whether they're writers, artists, poets, it's a thing, it's a vibe. I also think that in order for a successful hackerspace to really take off, you need to have continuous workshops, continuous projects, you need to be pushing the limit. And you also need to make sure that there's no barriers or to entry, I would say. There can't be this kind of I'm better, so get out of here kind of mentality. It has to be open, collaborative, inviting. That's like the most important thing, is creating that type of artist kind of studio for these creative people. But yeah, ideally, most of these hubs will be entrepreneur focused primarily. And the T-shaped people who have both incredibly broad skill set and a range of knowledge, you'll start seeing those people just come in naturally. And I think Jim is a perfect example of that, right? So we have a really good community in Austin, so I'm going to show Austin for a second. Sahil knows this. Kaylee talked about it in the other talk. We have an incredible community at Capital Factory, at the Bitcoin Commons, at Pleb Lab. Even in San Antonio, Round Rock, like we're doing some amazing things in Austin, and it's really cool to see everybody in sync, in lockstep, with how we approach things. So these are just some pictures of that. I'm going to talk about just specifically PlebLab Hackerspaces and how I think, or at least how I visualize us being, right? Maybe this is not entirely truthful. Hopefully you guys will give me feedback at the end. Our mission is to foster an inclusive community of developers, hackers, creatives, and enthusiasts of open source software and hardware. We aim to disseminate knowledge and provide resources to the broader Bitcoin community, create a space where individuals can collaborate, elevate their skills, and transform seemingly impossible ideas into reality. When you come into Pleb Lab, there's a big, not a big sign, but it's a sign that says, do epic shit? It's a reminder as soon as you step in the door, like, do something epic. Like, let's create wonder, right? Like, I want us to invent the light bulb. Like, it needs to be that type of, like, tone. So these are some of the builders that we have in the lab. Nifty Nate just recently joined us for a residency with her Base 58 education company. She's doing amazing things in transforming people like Christian, who used to be in the Web3 thing, and now they're full-on Bitcoin, Nostr, Lightning developers who want to like utilize ZBD stuff, right? Like, it's cool. You also have D++, who's an amazing community organizer, and she brings like high vibes all the time. Super Testnet speaks for himself. He's the most prolific open source developer I probably ever met in my entire life. And yeah, we also have Stacker News. Keon's right there. We have Eden 3D. Max, we have Fold, Galoy, Kraken, Sphinx, the Mutiny guys spill in from time to time. Typically, whenever we have hard questions, we're just like, yo, Ben, come over. We have, of course, Yo Peki. He's doing great things. He's also doing his, he's launching his app here in Mexico City this month. So reach out to him. And then Michael from Oshi, Zap Wright, John, and people like them. Thank you. Yeah. I like to think about PlebLab as a community effort. I think previous leadership tried to take credit for a lot of things, and being in the background and seeing that, I realized that that's not the right approach. It needs to be about everybody else and not about PlebLab. Incidentally, what happens is you have this type of community growth when you think that way. You know, we've done 2 startup days now, so that's a number that I need to update. There's been so many hackathon projects that we've been able to do out of Bitcoin Commons. We have so many PlebLab meetup members. Pleb devs, what Austin has created is enrolling and onboarding the next Lightning developers in Austin and around the world. All the workshop instructors that we've had, the monthly members that we've created inside the lab, the course that Super, Jim, or Super, Topher, and Captain Stacks made for the Nostr devs. This is another really cool thing. Logan too as well. So if you look here, like we've only been open like 11 months, and I think we have together as a collective of people working together with this hackerspace model, we've been able to accomplish a lot. This is also a testament, I think, just to Austin in general. We have a very broad Bitcoin community at the Commons, at Pleb Lab, and then these other kind of pockets around town. And you can see that here by the number of events that we throw. And this is not including like the Commons. This is like just Pleb Lab. So if you added the Commons, it would probably be over 100 easily. So that's kind of the cool thing about Austin is we have an abundance of things to do for Bitcoiners. More so that it gets really tiring after a while. I want to talk about like some case studies, and these are things that I didn't know that were going to happen, that just accidentally happened building a hackerspace. And so these are 2 case studies I want to talk about. This slide, another slide. Zaprite John. Like when we met John in 2021, this guy was just fresh out of Canada, and he did it. I don't know what it was. Keon could probably speak to it, but he was different. And then being in Pleb Lab at Capital Factory at that time, we slowly saw him morph into this lion in a den kind of thing, where he's like, you realize, oh wow. And then we started having like Pierre come around and like Marty come around, and then you can see his confidence just build and build and build. So when I look at John now, I'm like, wow, like if you would have asked me early on who's the one that's gonna like really, I would have not guessed it. It's really cool seeing that. But there was always that kind of like drive that he had. It was there, you could see it. Francisco. I met this guy 2 years ago at a Austin Bitcoin Club event. And he was highly ambitious on trying to onboard Mexico, the entire country, into Bitcoin. And seeing his growth and his trajectory and what he's been able to accomplish in such a short time, and go from just, hey, I have this idea, to, hey, can you help me get involved with the community and help us like, you know, do all the things that you need to do to actually build a company from nothing. Like seeing that happen with Francisco is amazing. So ask him any questions. He could he can give you a really good idea of what it's like working inside a Pleb Lab from just an idea phase to now I'm launching my company and launching an app. Keon's my best friend. I talk about it all the time. But this guy, when I met him in Miami, like he was completely different. He wasn't the Keon that he is today, floating on the carpet, like coding and stuff. That's what I think, like Aladdin. But like now, he's somebody that a lot of us personally reach out to, myself included. Other founders go to Keon for advice because of the way he thinks about things. And to see that growth from just like this guy I met like at Bitcoin conference to now one of the most well-respected, and even looking back at it now, dude was early. Him and Oscar really figured out the value for value model before anybody else. And I think they're gonna figure that out again for Nostr, if they haven't already. The other case study I want to talk about is like the Enlightening Experiments. And this is something I talked to Andre about, and that's why I'm so bullish on ZBD API. You can really like do things with Lightning in the real world. And I think we're probably really early on this. This is a credit to Topher and Jim who made this happen. Like seeing a door open because you're sending Lightning, like it's like it's magic. Like there's nothing like it. I remember telling you, Andre, I was like, dude, like remember, like there's like these internet cafes in the 90s, and there's just like Starbucks, right? Like it's the same thing that's gonna happen. That's gonna be really cool. And I think if you guys are interested in doing that, leverage the existing infrastructure that's already out there. And because it's just much easier to facilitate. Lightning Box is another thing these guys have made. This is when you get like a gym in there, a Topher, like they're doing like, I don't want to say what it is, I'll go ask them about it, but it's like this really cool inventive product that could only have come out of like the PlebLab. And so when you do these hacker spaces, this is the kind of cool stuff that gets built, you know, in the wee hours of the morning. And sometimes it starts as a joke, and then it becomes like a potentially a product. So these are things that I didn't think that were gonna happen, like when we started the hackerspace. Like it was just gonna be like, oh, just help startups, our friends, and it's like all this other stuff came out. The other thing that was if you would have told me Super Testnet was gonna be Super Testnet, like that's just not possible. When I met Super Testnet, he was a very quiet, reserved guy who did like education, and in the first year, I think he had maybe like, first year of PlebLab, he had like maybe like 23 contributions, and then the following year, he had like 500 in 2022, and then like this year, like it's just gone up and up. So seeing how prolific he's become just in the span of like 2 years is like a perfect testament to how hackerspaces can really work for somebody like him, who's like really loves this stuff. And so those are the two like case studies I wanted to bring about. Was the founders part, which I didn't expect that to happen, and then these lightning experiments that come out of it. And I think there's a lot more super testnets that are getting minted with more of these hackerspaces being built. So I think we have a model, but I put that in like maybe, just knowing how Keon thinks and how I'm thinking now, it's like maybe we have a model for what I think we're doing. So I think the flow works like this. I think you get these hackerspaces, you get people like Austin or Nifty or Topher or D, and like give them the opportunity to do education there and just facilitate the learning aspect of it. And then it creates more members, right? Like there's this, either it's an online membership or it's like a physical membership, but it creates more members for the hackerspace. Then you showcase those members, you know, with like startup days, with hackathons. Like you give them the opportunity to showcase their work and give it to a wider audience. And then you invite some friends from afar to come also, you know, showcase their work. And then you leverage the people that came before. Like we just had our startup day, and we had like Ben Price, Sahil, who else was there? Justin, who? Yeah, but like you had all these people there giving advice to these new founders that were coming up, like Derek and like some of these other people, and even Keon. And I remember Price said, he's like, why are we doing this? What's the point, Car? For like, we don't know anything. And I think that's, you do know something, but you know something enough to pass it on, those mistakes that you made to the new founders that are coming in. So I've had multiple conversations this week, I'm sure a lot of you have, where people are talking about like, what mistakes have you made? What's this, like what? And then you can talk about these things and you can avoid those same mistakes. I had an hour talk yesterday with Jessica, telling me how I, like all the mistakes that I made. And he was like, oh no, this is how, like it came together so naturally. And I think when you have the opportunity to showcase things like that, you can really learn a lot from everybody in the trenches with you. And so out of that comes startup members. And I think maybe, me and Teresa are still early on this. Like I said, we don't know if this works. But I think startup members come from those showcases because you get to know them, you get to hang out with them for a little week, you kind of understand like, oh, maybe they're a perfect fit for what we do here in this hackerspace called Pleb Lab. So this is just kind of a framework I think that could probably work if anybody's interested in kind of copying a similar model. This is what we achieved with initial funding. As you can see on the left side, there's a lot there. And I want to make it a point, like, this is not a one-person show. This is like the entire collective. I would even say the Austin collective of Bitcoiners who are doing all of this. But I think once you give like a nice space for builders who are focused on just that, you can create all these achievements. So I'll highlight like all the startups we have helped, the education that's come out of it, the events, the hackathons we throw at the Commons, the partnerships that we've been able to do with people like ZBD, right? Like these kind of things that can create more builders and streamline more projects getting built, because that's what we're here for. And then we have some future plans that we're hoping to do here next year. I think the thing that was announced yesterday was the Hackerspace initiative. I think Brian, this is like those ideas, and people ask me, how do you know what you're going to do next? And it's ideas like what Brian has, where he's like, yo, Car, let's really try to figure out this OS for like a platform for hackerspaces. Because I personally think at this point, a lot of us are thinking the same things, whether it's John's with Hub 21, or Brian in PlebLab, or myself, or Topher here at PlebLab, where we're already thinking like, okay, we have this lightning door, we have this need for some type of platform that can kind of, I guess the best way to call it is like a BTC pay server for the real world, right? For the hackerspace. You need something like that. And I think this kind of initiative that Brian has started and we're working with him on, I think we can get there. One of the things that we had happen recently was at BitBlock Boom. Lightning Door is cool because it works, but it's also kind of scary because like you just have people tap the lightning thing and then they come in, and so you don't know who's who, and it can be dangerous. So like that's kind of what we're hoping for, is to build something like that. And then yeah, that's my talk. But if you guys have any questions, I can answer them.
Where next?
Where next?
San Antonio?
Oh, like as far as Pleb Lab?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a hard question, Teresa. What do you think? I think there's a part of me that wants to open source all of this. There's another part of me that also wants to open source the ideas and like this presentation and how to do your own.
And then we do consulting to help.
And then we do consulting to help. So yeah, I forgot to mention that. Like one of the cool things that come out, Teresa has recently joined PlebLab, and one of the cool things that's come out that is she's helped us figure out this kind of revenue models for these hackerspaces. So consulting is something that we're doing with other places around the world so they can figure out their thing. So. Yeah. So.
What do you think about setting up a pipeline between PlebLab or any other hackerspace in an area and the local colleges and universities in the area?
I think you're already doing it, right? Like UD doing the University of Texas blockchain course, right? And then you guys inviting everybody in Austin to go talk over there. And that just started with, one of the meetups at the Commons. So I think that's obvious right now. I'm trying to work the Austin Community College to allow Nifty to teach there, and that's taken a long time. And so I think at some point I just need to go over there and have a conversation with them, because I think we can find some common ground about how we can get a course in there. And that's, when I think about these things, I don't think about them like, oh, how is it, I probably should have, Teresa, but I don't think about like, oh, how's it going to make PlebLab money, or how is it going to, I think about it more like, oh, how do I get Bitcoin adoption to happen faster in Texas?
Well,
Like,
that's kind of a two-pronged approach, because obviously we need to sustain, but at the same time, at the heart of all the Bitcoiners at PlebLab or the Commons or in Nashville is that giving back and educating and purporting Bitcoin out to the world. But I think with universities, get back to your question, Topher, that's also a two-pronged approach, because there's the educational route, we're available to teach, and there's the career route. So I've got a little experience working with the career departments at the graduate level, and that's something I'm going to be exploring in the Austin and Dallas areas, just to let them know, first of all, that we exist, that if they get some kind of outlier that says, I'm interested in technology and I'm interested in this particular type of developer path, then we have an answer, and that's good for that university, that educational space, in addition for us, and it kind of speaks to that outer ring of potential adoptees that I talk about. We've got our Bitcoin core people that we need to attract, not just those in Austin, but those who are like, okay, what does Pleb Lab do? Or what is happening in Nashville? Or what's happening in Tampa? Or here in Atlanta? You've got the core Bitcoiners who still don't know, so you got to talk to them. And then you've got other people who would be developers or technologists and so on. So that's kind of soft in the next wing. And then beyond that, you've got the more just common everyday people who can take advantage of your space or your education. We've had courses on Nostr and ChatGPT that garnered interest just because that's topical. So you may get somebody who is not going to feed into that flywheel that Carr had up there where they actually become developers. But if you get enough people in the mix, then you're going to be able to hone down into those people who are going to become part of the community, talk about the community, and who knows, be part of the accelerator room that starts cool companies and initiatives for potentially a whole country, like what Francisco and a couple others are working on in Mexico and other places.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's exactly right. For people that don't know, Teresa started working with PlebLab in March, April, and I think the only reason we're still around is because of her.
No,
if I'm being honest.
it's a team thing.
But yeah, sometimes.
What were some of the impressions that you got from seeing the PlebLab last night?
Dude, I was so inspired. So inspired. I was telling somebody there, I was like, I didn't realize how much I love like being a part of these things. Me and Topher were like off in a corner, like, dude, like, you writing this down, like mental notes? Because there's a lot of stuff I want to take back to Austin. And then immediately afterwards, I think I was talking to Austin or maybe Jenna afterwards, I was like, I want to go back home. Like, I want to go back home to my own lab and like hang out. That was the second thing. Yeah.
Well, I kind of got the same feeling right now from you sharing the presentation of taking some of this stuff back to Arizona. My question is, from like setting up the different types of events, did you have a strategy going in of like, okay, I'm gonna do like startup week, I'm gonna do like the social event, or was it just like, you know, kind of random?
Yeah, I think just listening to the people around me, I've been very blessed that I have a lot of really smart people around me, and all I have to do is just execute on their vision. People always ask, oh, Carr, do you feel like a leader? I'm like, I don't. Like, I do not feel like a leader. I feel like a director. Like, I feel like I'm grabbing a bunch of different talent in a lot of areas and showcasing them. That's what it feels like, kind of running Pleb Lab. But to your question, I think, yes, I think you kind of have to ask the people around you and ask them what they want to do, what they want to see, and then try to bring it to life. Yeah, Jim?
In his book, his best-selling book, Where Good Ideas Come From by Stephen Johnson, he talks about the role that subcultures and coalitions of very different people and ideas, it makes for great innovation. Can you share maybe one, an example of someone put in a cool coalition, like a cool serendipity that you've seen?
I think Super Tyson is a walking one of those, whatever you just described. Like, he invited Barack after Bitcoin ++, right? And I don't know when they had met or if they were talking for long. And then the week after, I didn't know what was going on, but I saw a tweet from Super and it said, like, he quoted the Oppenheimer one. Does anybody remember what he said? It was like I am become JPEG or breaker of JPEGs or something. You know, and I asked him, I was like, Super, what did you do? Because people, like, it's funny, like somebody else asked me, like, do you control these people? I'm like, dude, I don't control any of them. They do whatever they want. I can't stop Super even if I wanted to. He's just gonna do things. But what came out to your question is like, those collisions is like Barack coming over, talking to Super during Bitcoin ++, them hitting it off, and then Ordinals breaks. Right? But 2 months earlier, he's showing everybody how to get on board into Ordinals. Those things you don't know that are going to happen, that just randomly happen.
I mean, I think you and Topher is a pretty excellent example of one. I mean, Austin and Logan is another really interesting one. Austin, Logan, and Super, and think of others, but it's all pretty much everything that's going on is, you could probably say is an example of that, where, I mean, it's just like what people do. It's like we all just have we're all like kind of generic puzzle pieces that we can kind of fit together and make a pretty picture.
Yeah.
There are enough of us.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, I mean, you kind of said it all. I don't know that I'm there often enough, since I'm only there 1 week out of the month, to see a synergy bubble up. I've seen that working in improv groups, because you get that fun copy, and all of a sudden you hit your stride, you start coming up with jokes you never thought of before, you couldn't have thought necessarily independently. But what I do see is similar to what Keon said there at the end. And I personally think it is just only happening at PlebLab, because I'm a total homer for PlebLab, but it probably is happening at other locations, and that's that we all come together to work on projects, or come up with creative ideas, or to figure out problems, or to clean up after a big event, or prepare for a big event so that people have a great time and a good experience. It's been amazing to me in the past 5 or 6 months how many people who are aware of PlebLab speak so highly of it, and that says a lot about, Carr, what you've contributed, what was built beforehand with the 3 founders, as well as the people who are dedicated and are there at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and on the weekends because they're motivated by Bitcoin, they're motivated by each other, and that's kind of an ephemeral thing that you really can't put your hands around, but it truly exists at PlebLab because of the people that you are. And it also, I think, exists and can exist in other special locations, maybe not in every Bitcoin location, because it is a broad community, but generally speaking, because if Bitcoiners are at their foundation, there's a lot of hope for what you're working on, what you're bringing, and how that's going to positively impact people who have no idea.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Also, I think getting, like what you were saying, hearing it from the people that started the Austin Bitcoin movement, like Tor, saying what he says about PlebLab, or like Pierre, or even Jimmy, like for me personally, like I love that. Like that to me is just like, good job, like keep doing it. Like I find that very touching whenever they come around. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, Andre.
It's been 11 months, right?
Yeah.
You got a magic wand, you can change one thing. What would you do?
I have like 7 things. Can I pick 7?
You change only yours you want.
The other one we want? Okay. I would have been more mindful of runway, and I would have started smaller, even at the cost of just staying in Capital Factory, to really extend this. Because like I wish I would have listened to the elders around me when they were talking. At that time, I wasn't the leader or the person running things, so a lot of what I've been handed in February was decisions that were past made. Obviously, I was involved in them, but it was different. But yeah, if I had to go back, it would have been like extend runway at all costs to figure out these revenue streams. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
What do you think about the idea of being a 501c3 in a hackerspace?
If it comes with another wish, like Andre said, then go back, then maybe. But I think there's already people kind of doing that, like OpenSats, and I hear there's rumors of a Texas thing pumping up. So
Easy Bitcoin network.
yeah. Okay. If there's no other questions, I think I'm going to end it there.